This is a very important meeting, a very special congregation of skills and talent and people who act in the state and the region. And so I'm just thrilled to be here. And I have to say, of course, a big part of the reason I'm here is because of Tom's work. Tom invited me out, and I'm always happy to help however I can. So thank you to Mike Easley. Thank you, Lloyd. Thanks to the whole board. I'm just delighted to be here. Let me start by saying something which is obvious to a lot of the people in the room, but not obvious to a lot of the people around the country. Today we live in a time of fossil energy abundance. There has been, through the development of advanced technology for unconventional hydrocarbon production, through advances in mining technology, the access to fossil energy is as good as it's ever been, not just here, but around the world. There are a lot of benefits that come from that. There's a lot of good news that comes from that in terms of the creation of wealth, in terms of low energy costs, in terms of resilience and sureness, all these other sort of things. One of the things that is not a good news part of that story is the continued dramatic rise in greenhouse gas emissions, which present a clear and uncontestable climate challenge. Given that, we still believe, and is absolutely the center of the President's climate action plan, that fossil energy is a part of the solution set. It is part of an energy-rich, low-carbon future. And the Department of Energy is voting with their feet to try to make that happen, in no small part through the commitments that we've made around technology development and carbon capture, utilization, and storage, CCUS. Since the Obama administration came in 2009, we've committed $6 billion, billion with a B, to technology development and demonstration on that. In addition to which, we've got $8 billion, 8 with a B, of authorities within the Loan Program Office. So $14 billion is not chump change, and we really believe that it's important to take things from sort of the bench scale, all the way through commercial demonstration and into the market, and help create a market that makes that work. Let me take a quick aside and mention that since the last time I was here, we've witnessed the birth of a new species. That species is in Boundary Dam, Canada, and it's the first place where the fully integrated power system of carbon capture and storage is demonstrated at scale. For my whole career, people have been moving the fence posts around whether or not CCS is real and have you done it. And the last place to move the fence post was, well, you don't have a big coal-fired power plant where you've retrofit it for carbon capture and storage. Well, now there is. It's operating just fine. And the president of Sask Power strongly believes that that technology set is the right one for his customers, for his province. And that one power plant provides 25% of the power to his province. And so they're very keen not only to operate that and make it work, but to figure out how to do it again. As you heard earlier today, the best way to do these projects is not to be the first, to be the second. As Boundary Dam is thinking about their second project, they've already told us that they have 20 to 30% cost savings they can put forward right off the bat, and are trying to figure out how to make that real. Let me talk a little bit now about the budget. The President's budget was unveiled February 2nd. I'm pleased to say that, again, there's a substantial request and commitment to fossil energy research and development and demonstration in that. My program, the requests have grown every year. Last year's request was for $300 million. This year's request is for $369 million. In the 14 budget, we had about a $400 million budget. We got about a $400 million budget again this year, which is pretty close again to the number that Ben Yamagata was talking about in terms of, at that point you're kind of banging on all cylinders and you've got the minimum amount of money that you need to do the work that needs to be done. But again, the 16 budget request is a $60 million increase from last year's request. And I think it internalizes the recognition that actually this era of fossil energy abundance is here to stay. We will be using more coal, we will be using more gas, and if we're serious about climate change, then that's one of the things you need to do. We are investing substantively in technology, and something that's new in actually this year's budget and the 15 budget, and which we plan to expand in the 16 budget, is we need to get another generation of pilots up and running. We've got our 8 demos going forward. You've heard about a couple of them today, about Kemper and NRG and others. But we also need the next generation of technologies behind those. And we're not quite ready to do a whole fleet of this second generation technology at that scale. We need to do the 20 to 50 megawatt tests first. The 20 to 50 megawatts are very much the valley of death for carbon capture and advanced combustion technology for coal and for gas. And the reason why is because you put up a 20 to 50 megawatt unit, it might be a $50 to $300 million investment. At the end of it, what you have might not quite be a commercial operating system yet. So there's a clear federal role for that. And we've put a solicitation on the street asking for companies to put in for it. That follows a request for information we had a couple of months. Based on that information, we're fielding a solicitation asking for companies to put forward ideas, first for post-combustion capture pilots at that 20 to 50 megawatt scale. And then following that, we're hoping to do the same thing for advanced combustion systems, everything from pressurized, fluidized bed combustion to chemical looping. We want to actually field these things at a pre-commercial scale so that companies can decide that they want to pursue that commercially. And I can't say this enough. Really, in the United States, companies deliver the energy and companies deliver the technologies. And we're very proud and pleased with our track record of working closely with companies to make these things real and to bring them into the market. Something that else I want to mention briefly is that I just described around the pilots is part of a broader strategy of technology development that we're publishing next month in a roadmap. We're planning to put that out the door end of this month, February. And this is going to be, we haven't put one out in 4 years, so we're actually overdue. And this represents, I think, a recognition about not only the abundance of natural gas, but also the role that natural gas plays in the energy system going forward, but also the continued importance of coal, not just here, but internationally. One of the central planks of the President's Climate Action Plan is, in fact, international engagement. I'll get back to that in a little bit. So keep your eyes on that. That should give you a very straightforward picture of where we see the technology development needs and where we're going. One thing that we are explicit about in that is the need to accelerate what we're doing more. In our prior roadmaps, we've been looking at a 2035 timeline, 2040 timeline. Basically, that's going to be too late. We really need to have not just the second generation, but the third generation of technologies fielded at commercial scale by 2030, or else we're not creating the future that we need. We're not creating the optionality we need. And so that's going to be expressed in the roadmap. A preview of coming attractions. Watch this space. You'll see it there soon enough. One of the biggest things in the President's budget that I want to draw your attention to is, in fact, a proposal for a series of tax credits. And I've talked to a couple of you about that, but I want to take a moment and unpack this. This is actually a very large commitment, and again, it recognizes the importance of not only fossil energy as part of the country's fuel mix, but the need to manage the emissions from fossil energy. There's a proposal from Treasury to put $2 billion of refundable tax credits in the form of investment tax credits that will go up to 30% of the investment capital for a large capital plant. This can be a new build, can be a retrofit. In that draft proposal, it also says things like pipelines, storage projects can also apply for the ITCs. In addition to the ITCs, though, in addition to that $2 billion proposal, is a matching proposal for what we're calling a sequestration tax credit, an STC. That's paid for performance. If you put a ton of CO2 underground, you can get paid for it. If you're doing it for enhanced oil recovery, as the good people in Wyoming do very frequently and very well, you can get $10 a ton for that. If you're putting it into a saline aquifer or a saline formation, you can get $50 a ton for it. That's real money, and it's committed for 20 years. So unlike the existing 45Q tax credits, which are not bankable, these are. And unlike the existing 45Q tax credits, they're not capped at 75 million tons. And that means that people who want to get into this business for real have something that they can use both on the ITC side and in the sequestration tax credit side to think about financing the plants. Clean energy technology only has value when it's deployed, and in order to deploy it, you need the financing to be in place. And again, the administration is being very proactive on this. We work with Treasury, we work with the White House to get this forward, and I'm very, very pleased to see that proposal come forward in the current budget. One comment quickly on the international scene. I have been very busy over the past year since we've been here traveling around the world. I've traveled twice to Japan, 5 times to China, twice to the Middle East, both Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. I've been 3 or 4 times to Canada. I was actually at the Boundary Dam ribbon cutting. It was a delight to be there. Everything that we're doing here in our program, we think, has an international dimension. in part because we want to see American technologies find a market overseas. And we want to find compressors and capture units and gasifiers move into the broader global market. But the reverse is also true. There's companies and countries around the world who look at the United States as a good place to invest in this stuff and are bringing foreign direct investment into states like Mississippi, into states like Texas, and hopefully into states like Wyoming to actually bring these projects to light. One of our projects, the NRG Petronova project, which we talked about before, it's 50% Japanese financed. And we think that's a great story to tell and one we want to tell a whole lot more of. Something that's been announced in this regard is actually Secretary Pritzker from the Department of Commerce and Secretary Moniz from the Department of Energy are in fact planning a joint trade mission to China this year. First time they've done a joint trade mission together, but again, clean energy and commerce together in one place. That's a great, great story and a great recipe for success. I want to stop shortly because I want to make sure that not only I give ample time to Joe Goffman to talk, but also because we really want your questions and want to respond to them. I see us really at an inflection point right now. It's clear to many, including, say, the International Energy Agency, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, many governments around the world, that we're going to continue to use fossil energy and that managing the carbon dioxide is really important. And you've heard that from Carl Moore, and you've heard that from Carl Bauer, you've heard that from many people today. And so the choice we have is, I think, pretty straightforward. We can either push back or we can push forward. I'm of the push forward category. There are people out there who I meet who are solid, strong, passionate, committed, excellent at what they do, but their picture of the world is yesterday forever. That's not a picture that I subscribe to. I instead want to see a vibrant future for fossil energy and a low-carbon economy. And with that, I look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
Questions from the board? Yep. That sounds like a great start for incentivizing or supporting carbon capture and utilization. What do you think the number is that the federal government should be investing in that space in order to actually have the third generation technology by 2030, as you mentioned?
Right. So the question was, again, what should the investment be? I don't have a dollar sign figure for that, but pursuant of Ben Yamagata's earlier point, this is a distance run. In fact, it's not even a marathon, it's a relay. I will no longer be in my current position by the time we're fielding a whole bunch of these things. But we actually have to have sustained research and development budgets. We have to start investing not only in the next generation of pilots, which I talked about, but the next generation of demos after that. That's real coin. That's serious money. That investment can come in many different forms. Some of it grants to me, some of it like these tax credits that are out there, but we actually need to get these things up and running. The last thing that I'll add on that is something that I call, I think I mentioned this the last time I was here, Ohm's Law of Finance. Have you heard that? Money is like voltage. It overcomes resistance. That's why they call it currency. And so, thank you, at least one engineer out there. So, those kinds of questions are left open for policymakers, but I think the technical case is rather straightforward in terms of what we need to get from here to there and how much investment's required.
Yep. One of the things that we've hung around with Tom Dennis, where's Tom, for a while. And he always has these little sayings that only make sense if you're on the East Coast. One of those is like the saying is called pay-fors. So how are we going to pay for this stuff? And are you aware of or have you heard of any innovative ways that we can maybe bring new revenue to bear, rather than taking something else out of the budget or some other needed program, which then pushes a pushback on the technology advancing carbon capture, utilization, and storage? You know of any things that are out there that are maybe new sources of revenue that may be contemplated?
All right, so there's actually two different questions there. One of them on utilization and revenue streams, and the other is, how do we pay for a bunch of stuff? Let me start by saying something that was published in the last IPCC Working Group 3 report. Between 2004 and 2013, the world spent $2 trillion on clean energy. The number is actually $1,923 billion or something like that. 1% of that was on carbon capture and storage. So one could make a case that there could be a bigger number or a bigger fraction associated with that. We actually got a lot of benefit out of that $2 trillion of investment. We've dropped the cost for renewables. We've built infrastructure around the world. There's been a lot of good things that have come from that. But again, in terms of how do you pay for it, part of the question is wanting to pay for it and deciding that that's an important thing to do. And in fact, again, the administration's voting with their feet on this. Not only have we put $6 billion into CCS and $8 billion into the loan program for clean fossil, but also now this new proposal, which wraps up to be somewhere between $5 and $6 billion total of tax credits. With respect to utilization, the thermodynamics of utilization are hard. The engineering of utilization is hard. Apart from enhanced oil recovery, we're kind of at a loss for what to do that's really scalable as a global solution. That said, I'll also volunteer that we haven't scratched that hard enough. Things like an integrated test center could actually be a good test bed to vet technologies like that. I still think that mineralization makes sense. I think algae production makes sense. There's a lot of hair on those things, but we want them to work. We fielded a pilot this year in San Antonio, Texas, called Skyonic, the sky mining process. They're capturing 75,000 tons of CO2, but the footprint of that's basically like capturing 200,000 tons of CO2 because of what they're offsetting. And basically what they're making is hydrochloric acid and baking soda. Feedstocks are salt. They're making money off it, though, off of both of those streams. Eventually they're going to saturate the baking soda market in the second plant, and that'll be it. But after that, they're planning on making high-end carbonates for pharmaceuticals, for cosmetics, these sort of things, and you can get paid for that. And when that's done, they're going to sell road aggregate. It's $11 a ton. It's not a lot of money, but in fact, it's a salable product in a real market. And so they've got their eyes on the prize in terms of utilization. We need more out-of-the-box ideas like that one.
Other questions for Julio? Let's give him a hand. Julio, thank you so much.
Lloyd,
Hold it.
is there a roadmap in your mind that y'all are working on or have that hopefully will be, promoted and illustrated that says, here's some large-scale commercial facilities that we have up and running, but they're going to be stranded unless maybe we find other markets for those second plants. And how do we accelerate the investment going in? All the budgetary funding and other things are great, but are there some very proactive steps that can be taken in the administration to say, okay, maybe if it takes this long period of time for these to come to fruition, here's some near-term targets that how we're going to take what we already know today and try to deal with those things and balance that against also the new technologies that you just talked about, where we might be a little bit at a loss and we need to have some breakthroughs to go deal with those things. But with what we know today, is there a roadmap forward that helps, address with some of the carbon capture things in a way that the government and DOE can get behind in terms of incentivizing and funding and dramatically accelerating that in a much more compressed time frame?
Right. So a couple of thoughts on that. First of all, I encourage you to look at our roadmap. It'll be out in a month. And if you have comments on that you think, well, this isn't quite what I was asking or I need more, by all means, we want that feedback and are happy to talk about it. One of the things that is simply the case right now is that we don't quite have the market we need to create the market pull, to create the supply chains and all these sort of things to get this stuff going. Until we decide what policies we're going to use to create that market, we're going to be in a technology push situation instead of a market pull. That is way above my pay grade and not something I have an opinion on, but it is actually the way that this is. In part, things like these tax credits are a way to help create that market by getting demand for more large projects. And if we can get a dozen projects off the ground in the next few years, then that'll actually start to create that market pull a little bit and push back a bit on the stranded asset kind of concern of it. Last thing I want to say, and I didn't talk about this earlier, in addition to all the good things that we're doing in my shop and the other people in my parallel offices, the Secretary is driving an initiative on what he's calling cross-cutting efforts, and there's a whole pile of new money that's going into that. One of those is actually on looking at supercritical CO2 cycles. Brayton cycles is the back end for power plants. Big efficiency gains that you get from that. But it's a major thrust. My office is getting $35 million in the current budget to do that. We've actually got a budget line active today in which we're scoping these technologies. We're working up towards pilots. We're partnered with the nuclear energy guys and the EERE guys to do that. If you can get those technologies to market at the same time that you get these next generations, then you get these big efficiency bumps, you get these big water savings, you get all these other benefits that come from it. We've also got a big crosscut on energy water. We've got a big crosscut on subsurface stuff. We're trying to actually aggressively go after those other things that can be market issues, or to try to put booster rockets on the enterprise we've already created. And it's a very deliberate strategy, and we look forward to talking to our colleagues on the Hill about the merits of these kinds of things and how to go about doing it properly.
So, and if you would, just say where we can go find your roadmap when it is published.
Right. So when our roadmap's published, it's going to be on the Office of Fossil Energy website, which is, again, easy enough to find, fossil.energy.gov. You'll see press releases. It'll be on NETL's website, as too. NETL has been working very closely with headquarters. It's a joint document that'll be out on their website as well. And when in doubt, just send an email to Tom Dennis, and he will be happy to point you in the right direction.
So, Dr. Friedman, we really appreciate you. Welcome back and hope to see you again. Let's give Dr. Friedman a hand, please.